"You can't come through here, sir. This is private HOA property." The guard's voice cut through the morning air before my boots even hit the gravel. The gate stood 10 feet tall, steel bars painted a perfect suburban black, blocking the only road that had existed on my land for over 50 years. I could hear sprinklers ticking somewhere beyond it. Lawns I used to ride horses across. That's when I realized something was very wrong. I stepped closer, boots crunching slow. "That road runs through my acreage," I said. My voice stayed calm, but my jaw tightened. The guard didn't even flinch. He just tapped the sign bolted to the post. "Willow Creek Estates. Residents only." The metal click echoed louder than it should have. Like the gate was making a point. I looked past him. Rows of identical houses stretched across land I hadn't seen in years. Clean driveways. White fences. Perfect symmetry. Too perfect. That wasn't here before. Not even close. A breeze carried the smell of fresh asphalt and cut grass. New. Recent. Fast. I felt it in my chest before I said anything else. Something had changed while I was gone. "Who authorized this?" I asked. The guard shrugged. Didn't even look at me this time. "You'll have to take that up with the HOA. HOA. The word landed wrong. Like it didn't belong on this land. My land. I reached for the old survey map in my truck. Paper worn at the edges. Ink faded but still clear. 2,300 acres. Boundaries marked by creeks, ridges, and a road that cut straight through the middle. This road. The same one now sitting behind a locked gate I didn't control. I traced the line with my finger. Slow. Careful. Something didn't line up. The entrance, it sat right where the boundary shifted. Not inside their subdivision. Not fully. That didn't make sense. I looked back at the gate. The hinges. The concrete base. The way it sat just slightly off the original gravel path. A few feet. Maybe less. But enough to matter. My pulse slowed. That detail stuck with me. The guard cleared his throat. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step back." His hand rested on the radio at his shoulder. Not aggressive. Just routine. Like he'd done this before. Like other people had tried. That part bothered me more than anything. I took a step back. Gravel shifted under my boots again. The sound felt sharper now. I glanced one more time through the bars. Kids' bikes leaned against driveways. A golf cart rolled past in the distance. Life was moving normally behind that gate. Like nothing was wrong. Like I didn't exist. That's when the silence hit. No one inside knew. Not a single person. I folded the map slowly. Kept my eyes on that entrance the whole time. The angle. The placement. The line it crossed. It was small. Easy to miss. But it shouldn't have been there. And if I was right, that gate didn't belong to them at all. I turned back toward my truck. Engine still warm. Sun just starting to rise over the ridge. Light hit the metal bars at the exact angle. And for a split second, I saw it clearly. The entrance was never theirs. I did not drive away right then. I just sat there with the engine idling, staring at that gate through the windshield. The sunlight was climbing higher, catching the metal frame, making it look permanent. Like it had always been there. But it had not. I knew every inch of that road. Every dip in the gravel. Every bend near the creek. That gate was new. Too clean. Too precise. That detail kept pulling at me. I stepped out again. Slower this time. The air smelled sharper now, like fresh concrete still curing under the surface. I crouched near the edge where the asphalt met the old gravel. The line was uneven. Subtle. But wrong. Like someone rushed it. That is when I noticed the bolts. 4 anchor bolts driven into a concrete base that sat just a few inches off the original road line. Not centered. Not aligned. Shifted. That should not happen by accident. I ran my fingers across the edge. The texture changed halfway through. Old gravel. Then new pour. Clean cut. That shift mattered more than anything else I had seen so far. I stood up and looked past the gate again. A woman jogged by with headphones, not even glancing at me. A delivery van rolled deeper into the neighborhood without stopping. No one questioned the entrance. No one questioned who owned it. That silence told me everything. They believed this was theirs. Completely. I walked back to my truck and pulled out the folder I had not opened in years. Property deeds. Survey plats. Easement records. All stacked, all dated, all signed. My grandfather had kept everything. Every boundary, every agreement, every right of way. I flipped through slowly. Paper brushing against paper. Dates from decades ago. Signatures that still held legal weight. That is when I found the original access record. The road was not just a path. It was a registered access route tied directly to the acreage. No subdivision could exist without it. That was the rule. Always had been. I leaned against the truck, reading it again. Then again. Something still did not sit right. If they built all of this, they had to secure access. That is basic. That is required. Unless they did not. Unless they assumed no one would check. My eyes moved back to the gate. The position. The angle. The offset I noticed earlier. It clicked. They did not build the entrance where they were supposed to. They built it where it was easy. A few feet off. Just enough to cross a boundary line that was never theirs. I felt my pulse slow down. Not faster. Slower. That is how I knew this was real. I folded the document carefully and placed it back into the folder. No rush. No panic. Just clarity. The guard shifted his weight near the booth, watching me but not saying anything. He did not know. None of them did. That made this even bigger. I opened the truck door but paused for a second, looking straight at the gate again. The sunlight hit the base just right. Highlighting that small shift in position. Barely noticeable. Unless you knew exactly where to look. And now I did. I got in, started the engine, and pulled away without another word. The tires rolled over gravel, then dirt, then pavement again as I turned onto the main road. I did not need to argue. Not yet. I needed records. County records. Permits. Transfer logs. Every document tied to that entrance. Because if that gate was sitting where I thought it was, then everything behind it depended on a mistake no one had caught. I was already halfway to the county office when the first doubt tried to creep in. Not panic. Just that quiet voice asking if I was reading too much into a few inches of concrete. The tires hummed against the road, steady, almost too calm for what I had just seen. But the image of that offset base would not leave my head. It was wrong. Structurally wrong. Legally worse. I pulled into the county records building just after 8. The place smelled like old paper and floor polish. Same as it always had. Nothing flashy. Just rows of filing cabinets and people who moved slow but never missed details. That was exactly what I needed. I walked up to the counter and gave them the parcel number tied to my acreage. The clerk nodded, typed a few keys, and disappeared into the back without a word. The silence stretched longer than it should have. That usually meant something was there. When she came back, she dropped a stack of documents on the counter. Thicker than I expected. That was my first clue. I flipped through the top pages. Zoning changes. Development approvals. Subdivision filings. All recent. All tied to Willow Creek Estates. My land. Or at least parts of it. My fingers slowed as I turned each page. Every document referenced internal roads, shared utilities, residential plots. Everything looked clean. Too clean. That detail stood out immediately. Large developments always leave a mess of revisions. Corrections. Amendments. This file did not. It read like everything went perfectly the first time. That does not happen. I kept going. Deeper into the stack. Easement records came next. Access routes. Utility corridors. Drainage rights. This was where things usually get complicated. And that is where I expected to find them. But one section was missing. Not redacted. Not hidden. Just not there. The primary access easement. The one that legally connects a subdivision to a public road. It was not filed. I looked up at the clerk. Is this complete? She glanced at the file, then back at me. That is everything on record for that development. Her tone did not change. But something in her expression did. Slight hesitation. Like she noticed it too but did not want to say it out loud. I went back to the documents. Slower now. Careful. If the access easement was not here, then how were they operating that gate? How were they controlling entry? How were delivery trucks and residents coming in legally? The answer started forming before I finished the question. They were not supposed to be. I pulled out my own survey map and laid it next to their filings. Lined up the boundaries. Matched the coordinates. The numbers did not lie. The entrance they built was not covered by any approved easement in this file. Not one. That meant something bigger than a mistake. That meant assumption. Or worse. I tapped the edge of the map where the gate should have been. The clerk leaned slightly closer without saying anything. I traced the line again. Then shifted my finger just a few feet over. That is where the gate actually sat. Outside their recorded access. Inside my boundary. The realization did not hit like a shock. It settled. Heavy and precise. Like a lock clicking into place. I gathered the documents slowly. Stacked them back together. No rush. No reaction. Just confirmation. As I turned to leave, one thought stayed with me. If there was no legal access on record, then that gate was the only thing holding their entire community together. I did not go home after that. I drove straight back toward the property, slower this time, letting every detail settle into place. The document sat on the passenger seat, edges slightly curled from years of storage, but the lines were clear. No recorded access easement. No legal entry point. That meant everything inside that gate depended on something that did not exist on paper. That kind of gap does not stay hidden forever. I pulled over about half a mile from the entrance and killed the engine. The silence felt different now. Not empty. Focused. I stepped out and walked along the shoulder, keeping my eyes on the tree line that ran parallel to the road. There were old markers out here. Survey stakes, some leaning, some nearly buried. Most people would miss them. I did not. I found the first one about 20 yards in. Faded orange tape still tied around it, barely holding on. I brushed the dirt away with my boot and checked the tag. Coordinates matched my original survey. That was my boundary. I moved forward, counting steps, matching distance from memory. The second marker came into view near a shallow dip in the ground. Same tape. Same tag. Still intact. That line was straight. Unbroken. I kept walking until I could see the back side of the entrance from a distance. The gate looked smaller from here. Less imposing. More like something placed, not rooted. That detail mattered. I lined up my position with the markers behind me and traced the boundary in my head. It cut just a few feet off where the gate stood. Not by much. But enough. I stepped closer, staying outside the fence line. The hum of electricity from the gate motor reached me before anything else. Clean install. Professional. Expensive. But the base told a different story. The concrete pad did not sit centered between the markers. It drifted into my side. Not fully. Just enough to cross. That kind of mistake does not happen by accident on a project this size. Someone made a decision. A small shift to avoid complications. Or maybe they thought no one would ever notice. I crouched again, this time from the outside, and pressed my hand against the ground. The soil felt recently packed compared to the older dirt around it. That difference was subtle. But it confirmed the timeline. They built this fast. Probably under pressure. Probably cutting corners. I stood up and looked toward the neighborhood again. A moving truck was pulling in through the gate, slow and careful, guided by someone inside. New residents. New money. New assumptions. All flowing through an entrance that did not legally exist. That scale hit me harder than anything else. This was not just a gate. This was their lifeline. Every delivery. Every emergency vehicle. Every resident. All dependent on that single point. And that point sat on land they did not own. I took a step back and let the full picture settle in. No legal easement. Misplaced construction. Active use. That combination was not just a problem. It was leverage. Real leverage. I walked back toward my truck without rushing. Gravel crunched under each step, steady and even. My breathing stayed calm. No need to react yet. Not when the situation was this. Clean. I reached the door, paused for a moment, and looked back one more time at the gate. From this angle, the shift was obvious. Not to them. Not to anyone inside. But to me, it was clear as day. I got in, started the engine, and pulled away again. No calls. No warnings. Not yet. Because once they realized what sat under that entrance, everything inside that neighborhood would start to change. I did not call a lawyer right away. That would have been too loud. Too early. Instead, I went home and spread everything out across the kitchen table. Old deeds. Survey maps. County records. Each page lined up edge to edge. The afternoon light came in through the window, cutting across the paper like a spotlight. It made the boundaries stand out sharper. Cleaner. That helped. I traced the entrance again. Slow. Deliberate. The same few feet kept showing up. The same shift. It was not a guess anymore. It was exact. I leaned back and stared at the ceiling for a second. Thinking through the next move. If I pushed this the wrong way, they would fight. Delay. Bury it in legal noise. That is what HOAs do. That is what people like that rely on. But this was not about arguing. This was about control. I sat up and reached for my laptop. Pulled up the county parcel database again. This time, I did not search my land. I searched theirs. One lot at a time. Each home inside that neighborhood tied back to a master development file. Clean subdivisions. Perfect grids. But every single one pointed to the same access reference. A placeholder. Not a recorded easement. Just a note. That should not happen. I clicked deeper into the development filings. Permits for roads. Utilities. Drainage systems. Everything was approved. Everything except the one thing that made all of it usable. The entrance. I felt a slight pressure build in my chest. Not stress. Focus. This was bigger than a mistake. This was exposure. I printed the pages I needed. Highlighted the sections that mattered. Then I made one call. Not to a lawyer. Not yet. To a title specialist I had worked with years ago. Someone who understood land at the document level. I kept it simple. Gave him the parcel numbers. Asked one question. Do you see a recorded access easement for this development? There was a pause on the line. Papers shifting. Keyboard tapping. Then silence again. Longer this time. That was my answer before he spoke. No, he said finally. There is nothing on record that gives them legal entry from a public road. I closed my eyes for a second. Let that settle. He continued, voice lower now. How are they operating? I looked back at the map on the table. My finger resting exactly where the gate Saturday, through me, I said. The line went quiet again. Then a soft exhale on his end. He understood. I thanked him and hung up without explaining anything else. No need. The pieces were already in place. I spent the next hour organizing everything into a single folder. Clean. Simple. No extra noise. Just facts. Boundaries. Ownership. Access. That was all that mattered. The sun dipped lower, casting longer shadows across the table. The lines on the map looked darker now. Heavier. Like they carried weight. I closed the folder and set it aside. Then I sat there for a moment, hands resting flat against the wood. Thinking about that gate. That small shift in placement. A few feet that changed everything. Most people would try to fight this head-on. File complaints. Demand access. Make noise. I was not going to do that. Not when the situation gave me something far more valuable. Leverage. I stood up, grabbed my keys, and headed for the door. There was only one move that made sense now. And it was not the one they were expecting. I did not head back to the gate that night. I drove in the opposite direction, toward a small office park about 20 miles out. Most of the buildings were dark, but one suite still had lights on. A real estate broker I knew kept late hours. Not flashy. Not the kind of guy who asked questions he did not need answered. That was exactly what I needed. I parked under a flickering light and stepped out, folder in hand. The air felt cooler now. Quieter. Like the day had already moved on from what I had just discovered. But I had not. I knocked once and pushed the door open. He looked up from his desk, surprised but not alarmed. Ethan, he said, leaning back slightly. This is late. I set the folder down in front of him. I need you to look at something. He did not ask why. Just opened it and started flipping through the pages. His eyes moved slower as he went deeper. That was the first sign he saw it. I watched his expression shift. Subtle. But there. He reached the survey map and stopped. Finger hovering over the boundary line. Then sliding toward the entrance. He did not say anything for a few seconds. Just looked. Then he leaned back, exhaled once, and tapped the paper. They built their only access point here, he asked. I nodded. And it is not theirs. He sat forward again, this time more focused. Do they know? That question hung in the room longer than anything else. I shook my head once. Not yet. He closed the folder halfway, thinking. I could see it. The calculation. The scale of what this meant. Not just a mistake. A dependency. Every home inside that development relied on that entrance. Without it, nothing functioned. Not legally. Not practically. He looked back up at me. You are not here to file a complaint. It was not a question. I shook my head again. No, he let out a short breath, almost a quiet laugh. Of course you are not. He opened the folder again and flipped back to the parcel details. So what do you want to do with it? That was the moment everything narrowed. Clean. Simple. No noise. I pointed directly at the section where the entrance Saturday, I want to sell it. He blinked once. Not confusion. Just processing speed catching up. Sell, the entrance? I nodded. That piece of land controls everything behind it. He looked back down at the map, then back at me. To who? I did not answer right away. That part mattered. Not just anyone could apply pressure the right way. It had to be someone who understood leverage. Someone who would use it without hesitation. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. Scrolled once. Then set it on the desk. A contact name sat on the screen. A logistics company. Regional. Aggressive expansion. Known for buying strategic access points and turning them into controlled routes. He looked at the name and let out a slow breath. You are serious. I nodded. They need access. This gives it to them. He leaned back again, staring at the ceiling for a second. Then back at me. If you do this, that entire community is going to feel it. His tone was not warning. Just stating the obvious. I closed the folder and slid it back toward me. They already made their move, I said. They just do not know it yet. He nodded slowly, then reached for his phone. Give me 24 hours, he said. I stood there for a second, watching him dial. No hesitation. No second guessing. Just action. That told me everything I needed to know. I turned and walked toward the door. The hallway outside felt even quieter now. Like something had already shifted. I stepped out into the night, the flickering light buzzing above me again. The plan was no longer an idea. It was moving. And once the right buyer saw that entrance, they were not going to hesitate. The call came faster than I expected. Less than 18 hours. I was back at the property, parked on a dirt ridge overlooking the gate when my phone buzzed. The same number. I answered without speaking. They are interested, he said. No build-up. No hesitation. I looked down at the entrance again. Morning traffic had started. SUVs rolling in. A delivery truck waiting for the gate to slide open. Everything looked normal. That was the problem. How interested? I asked. There was a brief pause. Papers shifting on his end. Enough to move today. I did not respond right away. I watched a school bus stop just outside the gate. The door folded open. Kids stepped out, backpacks bouncing, walking through that entrance like it belonged to them. Like it always had. That detail sat heavy. What are they planning? I asked. His voice lowered slightly. Controlled access. Commercial designation. Restricted use. I knew what that meant. Not illegal. Not aggressive. Just precise. The kind of move that does not break rules. It rewrites how they apply. I exhaled slowly. The wind brushed across the dry grass around me. Quiet. Steady. Set the meeting, I said. He did not waste time. 2 hours. Their office. The line clicked off. I stayed where I was for another minute. Watching. Listening. The gate opened. Again. Closed again. Same rhythm. Same routine. None of them knew how fragile that routine was. I got back in the truck and started the engine. The drive into the city felt shorter this time. Focus does that. It cuts out everything that does not matter. When I walked into their office, the difference was immediate. Glass walls. Clean lines. Maps on screens instead of paper. These people did not deal in theory. They dealt in movement. One man stood as I entered. Mid-40s. Sharp posture. No wasted motion. He did not offer a handshake right away. Just a nod toward the table. "Show me," he said. I opened the folder and laid everything out. No explanation. Just facts. Survey lines. Parcel data. County gaps. His eyes moved fast. Faster than the brokers had. He saw it almost immediately. His finger stopped right where mine had the day before. The entrance. He leaned closer. Studied the offset. The missing easement. The boundary line crossing under the concrete base. Then he leaned back, just slightly. That small movement told me everything. He understood the scale. "You are certain?" he asked. I nodded once. Documented. He tapped the table twice with his finger. Thinking. Calculating. Then he looked up at me. "If we take this, access changes instantly." His tone was not a warning. It was a statement of fact. I met his gaze. That is the point. A faint shift in his expression. Not a smile. Something sharper. He turned one of the documents toward himself and slid it aside. Clearing space. "We can move today," he said. "But once this is signed, there is no quiet version of what happens next." I did not look at the papers. I did not need to. I already knew. I thought about the gate. The guard. The families inside. The assumption they all lived under. Then I reached for the pen. The room went still for a second. Just long enough to feel the weight of it. Then I signed. The man across from me closed the folder immediately. No ceremony. No delay. Just action. "We will begin transition within 24 hours, he said. I stood up, sliding the pen back across the table. My reflection caught in the glass wall behind him. Calm. Focused. Final. As I walked out of that office, my phone buzzed again. A new message. One line. Gate access reconfiguration scheduled. I stopped for half a second in the hallway, reading it again. Then I looked up. Because by this time tomorrow, that entrance was not going to open the same way anymore. The first truck showed up before sunrise. I was already there, parked far enough down the road to watch without being noticed. The air was cold, still holding on to the night. Then headlights cut through the dark. One set. Then another. Low rumble. Diesel engines, steady and deliberate. They did not stop at the gate. That was the first difference. The guard stepped out of his booth, confused, holding his radio like it might explain what he was seeing. It did not. The lead truck rolled forward and stopped inches from the barrier. No horn. No rush. Just presence. That kind of stillness makes people pay attention. I watched the guard speak into his radio, his posture shifting. Something was already off. Then a second vehicle pulled in behind the truck. Marked. Clean logos on the side. The company I had met yesterday. No hiding it. No hesitation. One of their operators stepped out, calm, focused, holding a clipboard and a sealed document packet. He walked straight to the gate, not even looking at the guard at first. That detail mattered. It was not a request. It was procedure. The gate remained closed for a few seconds longer than usual. Too long. The delay started to build tension. A resident SUV pulled up behind the trucks, then another. Engines idling. No one honking yet. Just waiting. That quiet stacking of vehicles felt heavier than noise. The operator handed the papers over. The guard read the first page, then the second. His shoulders dropped slightly. That was the moment. He understood something had changed. He keyed the radio again, voice tighter now. More vehicles began to arrive. A delivery van stopped short. A school bus slowed in the distance. Everything was starting to compress toward that single point. The operator did not move. He just stood there, hands at his sides, waiting. Confident. Like time was already on his side. Then the gate made a sound I had not heard before. A short mechanical click. Not the smooth slide from yesterday. This one was different. The guard stepped back. The barrier lifted halfway, then stopped. That pause stretched. Long enough for everyone to feel it. The operator stepped forward and placed a temporary sign at the base. White background. Black letters. Clean. Official. I could not read it from where I was, but I did not need to. The reactions told me everything. The first driver rolled down his window, leaned out, confusion written across his face. The guard shook his head once. Slow. Controlled. No explanation. Just refusal. That was new. The second truck behind the lead vehicle pulled slightly to the side, adjusting position like it belonged there now. Like it was taking ownership of space. The rhythm of that entrance had changed in less than a minute. What used to flow was now controlled. Delayed. Redirected. And the people inside had not even processed it yet. I leaned back in my seat, watching the line grow. More cars. More waiting. The system they relied on was no longer invisible. It was right in front of them now. And it was not theirs anymore. The guard stepped out again, this time looking down the line of vehicles instead of at the operator. That shift said everything. Authority had moved. Quietly. Completely. I started the engine but did not pull away yet. Not while it was still unfolding. Not while the first real reaction was about to hit. Because sooner or later, someone inside that neighborhood was going to ask the only question that mattered. The first horn finally broke the silence. Sharp. Frustrated. It echoed off the houses behind the gate, bouncing through a neighborhood that was not used to waiting. The line of cars had doubled now. Engines idling. Windows rolling down. People leaning out, trying to see what was happening at the front. But they could not. Not from where they were. The operator remained still, standing beside the new sign. The guard shifted again, clearly unsure where to look. That hesitation spread faster than any announcement could. A man stepped out of one of the SUVs near the front. Early 40s. Clean shirt. Confident walk. The kind of person who was used to things working. He approached the gate with a phone in his hand, already dialing someone. Probably the HOA. Probably expecting a quick fix. He spoke to the guard first. Short exchange. Quick gestures. The guard pointed toward the operator. That was new. That was the transfer. The man turned, walked over, and started asking questions. I could not hear the words, but I could see the shift. His posture changed halfway through the conversation. Shoulders tightening. Head tilting slightly. Processing something he did not expect to hear. Then he stepped back. Looked at the gate. Then at the line of cars behind him. The realization was starting to spread. Not panic. Not yet. But confusion layered with something heavier. The school bus pulled up next. Slower this time. The driver leaned out the window, asking something. The guard did not answer immediately. He looked at the operator again before responding. That delay mattered. Kids inside the bus pressed against the windows, watching. Something about that image made the situation feel bigger. More visible. This was no longer a quiet change. It was happening in front of everyone. A second sign went up near the side of the road. Larger. More permanent. The operator placed it with precision, making sure it faced the incoming traffic. Clear line of sight. No way to miss it. The reactions became sharper after that. Doors opening. People stepping out. Phones coming up. Photos being taken. Calls being made. The rhythm of that neighborhood had broken. Completely. I watched a woman in workout clothes walk up from inside the gate, talking quickly, her expression tight. She pointed toward the road, then toward the houses behind her. The operator listened, then responded with a single gesture toward the documents in his hand. Calm. Controlled. Final. She stopped talking after that. Just stood there for a second, staring at the gate like it had changed shape overnight. In a way, it had. I leaned forward slightly, resting my arms on the steering wheel. The sun had climbed higher now, lighting up the entire entrance. Every detail visible. The offset base. The placement. The signs. All of it out in the open. No hiding it anymore. A black SUV pulled up. Fast from inside the neighborhood and stopped near the front. The driver stepped out immediately. Different energy. More urgency. This one went straight to the guard, then past him, heading directly for the operator. I recognized her before she even spoke. The way she carried herself. The precision in her movement. That had to be the HOA president. She did not slow down. Not at first. But she did stop when she saw the documents. Her hand reached out, took the top page, and held it just a little too long. Reading. Rereading. The silence around her grew heavier. People were watching now. Waiting. She lowered the paper slowly. Looked at the gate. Then at the ground beneath it. Right where that small shift had been from the start. Her expression did not break. But it changed. Subtle. Controlled. The kind of change you only see when someone realizes they missed something they should not have. She turned slightly, scanning the line, the trucks, the signs. Calculating. Adjusting. But there was nothing to adjust to. Not anymore. I eased my foot off the brake and let the truck roll forward just enough to get a clearer view. The entire entrance was in frame now. Every angle. Every line. Every mistake. And for the first time since this started, she looked up from the gate and scanned the road beyond it. Looking for something. Or someone. I stayed where I was, engine low, watching it all settle into place. Because the moment she connected that entrance back to the land it sat on, she was going to realize exactly who she needed to talk to next.